The views and opinions expressed on the cap are those of the hosts. They do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of OldMilk Media. Any opinions stated aren't intended to offend anyone. On this episode of the Cap Podcast, we recap the year by trying to come up with the top 5 album list. Welcome back. This is episode 525 of your critical but accurate tour through hip hop, the Cap Podcast. I'm Nate Sperlin. That is Taylor McLeod in person in the same room for the first time ever. See, I can touch him and he's here. So that's pretty cool.
It's true.
Thank you for watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever else you might be tuning in. Feel free to join the conversation by leaving a comment, liking this video, and subscribing to the channel. That being said, Taylor, how are you doing today?
Yo, usually I have like a complaint about something, or I say I can't complain, but really I can. I have nothing to complain about. We're here in person for the first time. I haven't seen you in 4.5 years.
Yes, it's been a long time.
Which is crazy. We're here, Syracuse, Miami today, third episode in a row on a Syracuse game day.
Yes. Yes.
I literally have nothing to complain about today. Nothing.
Hey, man. You're wearing orange, I'm wearing orange.
It was, it's on purpose.
Hey. Hopefully we don't have anything to complain about later because we want to win. So
yeah,
I guess that remains to be seen. That being said, let's get right into the episode. 2024, crazy year in hip hop for sure. One of the craziest years, and I think when we look back at this decade, the 2020s, it'll probably be one of the craziest years of hip hop. How would you summarize the year?
Well, I think you can split it in half, right? You can split it in half to look at just the music that came out, and then you can. One half is just the music. The other half is the maybe the biggest controversy or the biggest, beef in hip hop history, right? When we're talking about just the music, which is more important to me at this point, I said it to start the year and it kind of held true for the rest of the year, but the adults really were in the room this year, and I think we got a lot of music that was artists stripping away their like maybe like their superhero characters,
like their personas,
and getting just like them. Which was refreshing. And I think that the first year that you and I did this in 2022, we had a ton of drops that year. And then last year there weren't nearly as many. And this year we had a bunch of albums from a bunch of artists that you and I both like, but also established artists who gave us more updates on where they're at in life as opposed to like one-off art projects, if that makes sense. Like obviously everything is art that we listen to and talk about, but I think you know what I mean. Like we got a lot more of like personal updates from a lot of these artists, which was really nice because, as you and I get older, it's like you start to realize like you've been listening to Schoolboy Q for, 15 years. You've been listening to
Kendrick Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar for 15 years. Like, and we're at an age where it's like, from 12 to 26, like listening to these people, like it's nice to get that real life update. So for me, like the adults were truly in the room this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say if I were to summarize it in a word, I'll probably say vulnerability. And that comes from being an adult. For you to be able to introspect and be vulnerable with everybody else, you need to be able to be vulnerable with yourself first. And I think we saw artists like Rhapsody, Schoolboy Q, as you mentioned, even like 21 Savage, Kendrick Lamar, Doechii, Tyler the Creator, Vince Staples, Ab-Soul. Like there's so many other artists that we personally listened to on the side that we didn't even get a chance to talk about. But like even throughout our season and the albums that we talked about this season, there was a lot of introspection, a lot of vulnerability there. And I think that it bodes well for hip hop in general, because I think we were kind of getting away from that. Also, like you said, like we are getting older. We're in our mid-20s, starting to learn more and more about what it's like to have this experience of being an adult in this world. And seeing our faves kind of like have this moment of introspection it's kind of nice to see, because we're at a pivotal point in our lives. And to kind of hear how they maneuver through pivotal points in their lives, it's kind of like watching an older brother, if you will, like make their mistakes and then knowing not to make the same mistake.
Well, it's like when we're in middle school and high school and you're even college and we're looking up at these artists, right? And they feel so much older than you and so much more, they've lived so much more than you. But now that like you and I are like, we're the same age, like when Jay-Z dropped his first album, like Kanye, you know what I mean? Like it's like we have it's a different level of you just look at it differently, right? And I've even been going back through catalogs and like listening to stuff with like new ears, and it's crazy. But I was, yeah, like I said, I was very relieved almost that we got real albums from real artists this year,
Yes.
and it's not just these products tailored for either TikTok or just easily like, digestible. It was, and I hate the where it's like, oh, it makes you really think these
Mhm.
lyrics mean something, right? Because I don't, that's not exactly how I feel, but it's like we just got back to like artists being themselves,
Yeah.
and I can really
I
appreciate
I
that.
agree with that. I think I also think it's interesting because like a lot of the artists they did kind of balance the easy listening with the
Yeah,
vulnerability. Like when we look at someone like Schoolboy Q, like Ab-Soul, I think out of all the artists, Ab-Soul was the most surprising because he usually is mostly like lyrics mean
yeah,
something, but he was able to give us songs where um they're just like nice to listen to.
yeah. But it's
And
still there though. It's like
yeah,
it's still that.
so it's like a nice balance, I feel like. Even like when we talk about like Kendrick Lamar and
Yeah,
GNX, like I feel like that's like there's still a lot of commentary going on that
yeah,
album, but it's probably the most like we use this word all the time on this podcast, hit attempts.
yeah.
It's probably like the most hit attempts I've seen
Uh-huh.
Kendrick put together on an album. And it still comes together so
Yeah,
cohesively. So that being said, because I think we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves in terms
yeah.
of like
Right.
the segmenting of this episode, let's start talking about our honorable mentions. I have two.
Yeah, I
Um,
have two as well.
so go ahead with your two. Oh
So
wait, I'm sorry. Just for the record, the honorable mentions are albums that we personally listened to,
yeah,
but we didn't get a chance to talk about on the podcast.
yeah. One of mine we did talk about, but it didn't make
Okay,
my five.
gotcha, gotcha.
So my number one honorable mention, and this is not surprising to anyone who talks to me about music in real life, is Across
Boldy
the Tracks,
James.
Boldy James and
Yep.
Conductor Williams. Two of my favorite artists right now. Boldy James is the best rapper alive, and I really won't hear anything else. So that's my first honorable mention. And then Why Lord by No Worries.
Oh
Me and
yeah.
you love
Okay.
that album,
Yeah.
and I like
Yeah.
I still go back to that. It's like it's sad subject matter, and it gets very serious at some points, but like that album, man, makes me like the it is what it is, like,
Hmm.
charges of the game, like, like
Yeah.
that mentality, like the ball up top, we are so back, like the mentality that's like so fun to like put yourself into, like it just encompasses that. So those are my two.
Yeah, I mean, and with Y Lord also, like that's probably another album I should have
Yeah.
listed before when we're talking about like the balance between like
Yeah.
the serious subject matter and also like having
Yeah,
like
right.
the hit songs. My honorable mentions are West Coast. They're both West Coast. First of all, Chromacopia by Tyler, the Creator. Honestly, like we weren't able to talk about it just because of scheduling. Honestly, the album, like I listened to the album, I understand it to be a good album. I can even entertain it being a great album, but like just the timing of how it was dropped, I just wasn't in a place to hear it at that time, and because of that, it kind of like
Yeah.
doesn't really fully allow me to appreciate it. And I hope like in the future, maybe like in our off season, I guess,
Yeah.
I'm able to go back and listen to it and actually fully appreciate it. But right now, it just stands as an honorable mention to me for that reason. And the second one is an album that I love listening to, and that is "Fuck It" by Almeida, the TDE artist. She makes rock music, mainly rock pop type stuff, and it's really good. I recommend checking it out. Like the album is probably, I think it's like 10 songs, maybe like 22 minutes. So it's not really going to take that much time out of your day to go listen to it. So like if you have the time, definitely go listen to it, give her some love because I think she could be the next big thing. And I think TDE, like we're going to talk about another TDE artist who could be the next big thing also.
Yeah.
But I think TDE, in terms of like new artists this year, the only two new artists who have like debuted themselves this year that I really actually care about are the TV artists, Alameda being one of them, Doechii being the other. And that brings us perfectly into our individual top five.
Yeah.
Taylor, what is your individual top five?
So not in well, I do have them in order. I was gonna say not ranked, you know what
Mhm.
I mean? But I do have them in order.
Don't cop out.
I won't. I won't. And looking at this list, we have, man, it was a good year for the West Coast. I
Yes.
left the West Coast, so maybe it was a bad year for me, but it was a good year for the West Coast. So my number one album of this year of 2024 is Dark Times by Vince
Okay.
Staples.
Okay.
I think that is the perfect third album for this trilogy that Vince has really like changed his sound, or maybe not changed, but adapted his sound
Mm.
from a lot of electronic aggressive beats to in 2021 you had Vince Staples, 2022 Ramona Park Broke My Heart, and then this year we have Dark Times, and I think it's just a I think it's vulnerable. I think it's Vince being Vince, and it's just, it's just right there for you. My number two is Blue Lips by Schoolboy Q. That's what spurred me to say the adults are in the room at the
Mhm.
beginning of the year. And then you go back to that album. I go back to it all the time, and it's
Yeah.
just like Q. Maybe not. I might, hold some other projects more dear to me, but in terms of like this is like Q at its best. This is a Q at his most like dialed and cerebral, and I have a lot of respect for that. Three, I have Soul Burger by Absol. You get the same introspection and reflection that you're used to
Mhm.
from Absol, but with like so much more energy, right? And we talked about it earlier, and we talked about it on the podcast we did, but Bucko Jr., that song on there,
Yeah.
I've never heard him really, really like, except I've heard him on features rap like that
Yeah.
when he's matching an artist's energy,
Yeah.
but like I listen to that
Himself doing
song
that.
every day at this
Yeah.
point, and like he is turned all the way up on that, and it's
Molasses
crazy.
on my beak.
Yeah, right. Number four, Please Don't Cry by Rhapsody.
Yeah. Great album.
Speaking of adults in the room, that might be the most adult album
Yeah.
of the year. And Rhapsody is so good. Like she raps so well. She's so technically sound. It's like a Tim Duncan situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Big shot every
yeah,
time. You know it's gonna go in.
it's just everything is perfectly placed. Everything is so good. The themes, the specific stories, the anecdotes like are so perfectly placed. And for a long album, it's 20 something songs and usually I don't like that, but
Yeah.
it's like easy for me to listen to that whole thing. It feels like a movie, right? And some albums are meant to sound like that, but this sounds like a movie that like a 2.5 hour movie that you can like sit down and just watch and follow someone through it. And then my fifth, this was my only solo episode of the year. I did like 45 minutes on this by myself. Mixtape Pluto by Future. He obviously had two other albums come out this year with Metro that we'll talk about, but Mixtape Pluto is my favorite type of Future. And I've seen people on Twitter being like, "Oh, are we just gonna let Future keep making this type of music like into his 40s and everyone else has to grow up and make more mature music, but Future?" It's like, yeah, he absolutely can.
Yeah.
Like Future doesn't play by the same rules as everyone else. Like he made his own.
Mhm.
He plays by his own rules, and that's what I want. Like I want like Plutoski kind of swept the internet for a little while, and when I did the show, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Like, but then it's like that's another Bucko Jr. and
Yeah.
Plutoski are like the I listen to those two songs every single day, like to get myself
I
ready
think
for the day.
I think you're sleeping on Press the Button though.
Press the Button's good. Gotti's good.
Yeah. Too
Uh,
fast.
I mean, Too Fast is incredible.
Yeah. Lost my dog. Kind
Everything
of
on
sad,
yeah,
but
everything on
still
here is
really
so
good.
good. But
Yeah.
man, Plutoski, like he just take care of the bill. Like that's all that matters. That's all that matters. So that's my five: Dark Times, Blue Lips, Soul Burger, Please Don't Cry, Mixtape Pluto.
All right. We have some overlapping albums in our top five. Honestly, I'm still wrestling with the order in my head, but this is how I have it written down right now. So in order, because I'm not going to cop out. I can't press you about not copping
I
out.
did. I did it.
I know.
Okay.
So that being said, I have to stay true. I have to keep
Yeah,
the same
yeah, yeah.
energy. As written down right now, I have Soul Burger number five. I love the fact that Absol was able to continue on with this concept from Herbert. He's always been like an introspective
Yeah,
artist. He's always
absolutely.
he's always had like a different way of looking at things. So for him to kind of like take that and to see him do something that we haven't really experienced much from Absol albums, which is like hearing him genuinely have fun
Yeah,
with the
right.
music. I thought that was a very uh, big step for Absol to take. Like I
Yeah.
really, really appreciated that. When we started looking at the track list, 9 Mile. Like honestly, it didn't click for me that 9 Mile was supposed
Yeah.
to be like 8 Mile. Like
Yeah.
the until you brought it up
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah. Of
episode, and that makes me appreciate that song
course.
a lot more. California Dream. We talked about
Yeah.
that. Bucko Jr. Probably like you said, probably my favorite song on the album. Um, Righteous Man is amazing. Peace, I still haven't really fully figured out that Lupe
Yeah, right.
Fiasco verse. But overall, a really, really good album for Absol. And honestly, like we don't expect anything less from
No,
Absol. Like we
definitely not.
usually know that we expect it to be a quality album, and it almost always is a quality album. So I like that. I think I saw that he did like one of those like colors
Yeah. Yeah, he
performances, and I
just
think he
did.
performed Squeeze First Two, which is nice. So I'm happy to see him start getting in these little spots. He got a shout out on the Kendrick Lamar album also.
Yep.
So I'm just happy to see like a cultural appreciation for Absol because he
Yeah.
definitely deserves that. Number four for me, I have Dark Times. I said it at the time, like it's like Vince Staples' ability to make his music for me, like Vince Staples, like I liked his earlier work, and then when he started getting into like the electro techno stuff, that
Yeah.
kind of lost me a little bit. So when we talk about Vince Staples to Ramona Park broke my heart to Dark Times, I agree with you. I think that's a
Yeah.
really good trilogy. I think Dark Times could be. It's more. I think it could be one of the more relatable ones out of the
Yeah.
three. I would say, especially for me as a black man, like Vince Staples being able to talk about life from that
Yeah.
perspective. And there were a lot of things that I identified with, or things that I could see like some of my friends identifying with, or like having those talks with my friends and knowing that they identify with that type of stuff. I thought that he perfectly encapsulated that. I thought Rhapsody did the same thing, but from a black woman perspective. Obviously, I'm not a black woman, so it's not as relatable to me. So that's why Dark Times gets the nod over Rhapsody's album. Number three, I have We Don't Trust You, which I said at the time is a classic. I still listen to it to this day. On the car ride up here, I played uh, that three song run between I think it's Claustrophobic,
Yeah.
then Like That, then Slimed In.
Yeah.
First of all, on Slimed In, Future sounds so cool.
I mean, he is so cool.
He is,
Yeah.
but like, but like he just sat like I think out of all the music that Future has put out this year,
Yeah.
that might be the coolest that he sounds.
I disagree, but you heard Plutowski?
I did hear Ritowski, but
No,
it's just like that effortless.
yeah.
Like it's like it reminds me of Hard to Choose One
Yeah.
on so much what is it? Life is Fun? Life is Good?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that. But like it reminds me of that song where
No, high
like
high off life.
High Off Life. Thank you. So it reminds me of that album or Hard to Choose One on High Off Life
Yeah.
where the flow doesn't really change throughout the
No.
whole thing. And like he just like effortlessly verse, keep the same flow,
Yeah.
hook, keep the same flow, verse, keep the same flow. Like if you're just listening to it and you're not really paying attention to the words at all, and you're just paying attention to the lyric,
Yeah.
not the lyrics, like the rhythm
Yeah.
of how he's saying things, you can think that it's just like
No,
one big
it's
verse.
like a river.
Yeah, and another great song, by the way.
That's true.
So like hearing him be able to do that, really kind of like turned the clock
Yeah.
back, because we haven't really. He has worked with Metro since, but like it hasn't been like for a full focused project. So like hearing Metro Boomin still be able to be like the best producer in rap, and then hearing Future being able to once again solidify his legend, his place as a legend, his place in the Big Four. Um, I would argue he's probably number two right now, just based on how things have gone over the course of the year, in that Big Four. But to hear him still be able to be in his prime, like almost 10 years after his prime started with
Yeah.
DS2, is really amazing. Number two, and this one is interesting to me. I thought about it a lot in terms of putting it at number two or number one, but I felt like because of recency bias, I might be putting it at number one for recency bias. So that's why I opted
Yeah.
to put it at number two. GNX by Kendrick Lamar, man. I mean, like, come on, like you have TV off, you have Renaissance or Reincarnated, excuse me. Let me pull up the track list so I can actually speak from facts. So I just messed up um one song title.
I just see some Drake in your recent searches.
Probably looking at streams, honestly.
All right.
Um, but yeah, like Kendrick Lamar, first of all, when we look at Kendrick Lamar's year, the one criticism that you could have for Kendrick Lamar before he dropped this was, how can you run the year if you
Without
didn't release
no.
an
Yeah.
album? I think that's valid criticism, although Not Like Us took the world by storm. Euphoria also took the world by storm. I think it's a shame that in LA or 616 in LA isn't existent on like major streaming platforms, obviously because of like the
I
sample or
mean
whatever.
that's my favorite
Yeah,
song
I
out of
think
the
that
whole
could be the
beat.
best song,
Yeah.
honestly. And then you have Meet the Grams also, which is a
Yeah.
really good song. So like the ability to to have those four different vibes
Yeah.
and win a beef that way, I think is very impressive alone. And then we get to the album.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to point out, TV off when you have Lefty Gunplay at the end, talking
Yeah.
about crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious.
Yeah.
He's talking about the four diss tracks.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So like you have I think Euphoria was crazy. Then you have Meet the Grams, which is scary.
Yeah.
Or no, did NLA come before?
Yeah, because that
So
was Euphoria was Tuesday, not 616 was like the Thursday,
yeah,
and then it was Meet the Grams was Saturday
and then
night, and
Not
then
Like
Not
Us.
Like Us was Sunday.
Yeah. So So then you have 16 in LA, which is the scary, and then you have Meet the Grams, which
Yeah.
is spooky, and then you have Not Like Us, which is hilarious. I find that like there's just so many different Easter eggs in this album
Yeah.
that it's just like it's just you just can't not appreciate the album. I feel like
Yeah.
I think Peekaboo is getting slept on personally. Like just looking at what is listed to be, I think Kendrick is gonna have 8 tracks on the top 100 in the top
Yeah.
10 in the top 100. So Peekaboo not being there kind of interesting to me. Dodger Blue also another slept on song. If you don't like Luther, you're not qualified in this conversation. Period. You could say it's not for you, but for you to say it's a skip, not qualified in this conversation. Squabble Up, I love Squabble Up because we heard the snippet of it on the Not Like Us music video and like plenty of other Kendrick snippets, as I said last week. Um, we don't know if it's gonna come out, and
Yeah.
it comes out and it's great. And then you got the sample with the music makes me dance. Like
Yeah.
that's amazing. Like the whole I can't give this enough praise. The Heart Part 6, where you have him tell the story of TDE from start to actual finish from his perspective, because at the end he's starting rapping about like I felt like I was stagnant,
Yeah.
like I felt like I needed to change, I needed to go be independent, and like the impactfulness of it having that message of the family unit,
Yeah.
one, and then two, like if you guys are family, you guys should be able to sit down and talk about things
And they,
like
yeah, they
family.
obviously have.
Yes. So that being said, like just the overall message of that, and
Yeah.
also him just saying like Drake, I don't care that you put out the Heart Part 6. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put out my own, and it's gonna be better than yours anyway. I appreciated that. Gloria, I didn't realize that Gloria wasn't about his girl. It's about
It's
his
about,
pet
yeah, his pet.
and rapping. So I thought that was cool. Full of double entendre. This is the album where Kendrick is doing the most in terms of like trying to create hits and anthems, because obviously he has the Super Bowl coming up. But then at the same time, there's still that level of double entendre where songs can have two
Yeah.
different meanings, three different meanings, which shows Kendrick's brilliance. The storytelling on it is amazing. Also, I have to move on because I could
I
literally
mean,
talk
you didn't
about
even
this.
talk about the best song, but
Yeah. Oh, even like whacked out murals, like being able to call everybody out,
crazy.
like
I love that song so much.
it's I think it's gonna be number 4 this year,
Yeah.
I mean, this week, and that's really amazing. And then finally, I have "Alligator Bites Don't Heal" by Doechii, the other artist that has made me a fan this year. I was already a fan of her before, like I said. I had known about her for a while. With Yucky Blucky Fruitcake, I believe it was called, and like you could see her ability to rap and then kind of like have a conversation with herself
Yeah.
through rap with like two different perspectives of stuff like that. She does that again on this album with "The Nile's a River," which is an amazing track. Her versatility is what stands out. Just straight up, her versatility is what stands out. And in that way, I think we can compare her to Kendrick because Kendrick can make a song by himself, and
Yeah.
there are a select few artists who can make a song by themselves and be basically use their other talents as the feature to their main talent. And Doechii is one of those artists who can do that. And she does that all throughout the album. My favorite part about this album, like if I have like 10, 15 minutes and I want to listen to Doechii, I start at Boom Bap and I finish it through
Yeah.
the end. I think Boom Bap is really like the highlight of the album. Having the TDE rite of passage of get top on the phone, I'm trying to release this album. Um, Doechii has that there with Boom Bap and then goes into Nissan Altima. Every single song shows like a different side of her,
Yeah.
different side of her talent. The beats are amazing. My favorite song on there, if I didn't have to say, or if I couldn't say Boom Bap, I would probably say Slide or Beverly Hills. So yeah, I would probably say as far as a debut album goes, this is one of the most impressive debut albums of this decade. One of the most impressive debut albums that I personally, in terms of in live action,
Yeah.
have witnessed. And I think that she deserves all the awards that are coming her way. I think people who are saying like, "Who is this?" Like they don't like she doesn't count because blah 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 are stupid. Listen to the album, and if you listen to the album, it's pretty clear why she's getting nominated for these awards.
Yeah.
And that being said, we can move on to our podcast top five, and our podcast top five will be made out of the albums from our individual
Yeah.
top fives.
So
We have
we have
picked
two
our top
overlapping,
fives.
right? We have two
Yes, we
overlapping.
do.
So are either of them going to be one?
Um, our two overlapping is Dark Times and Soul Burger. I don't believe in my
No, yeah,
opinion.
yeah, that yeah.
I don't think they're um I think if they're overlapping, they have to be on the list.
Because so we just to pull back the curtain a little bit, we determined our podcast five before,
Yes.
but we didn't rank them.
No.
So now we have to reveal the five while ranking them.
Yes.
So what do you think should be our podcast number one album of the year?
Our podcast number one album of the year. I would say it would probably be between these two. I think that these two are probably saying these two because we're gonna tell you, but like we don't want to like give too much away. I think it will probably be those two because those two are probably the most impressive, I would say.
So this was my fault that I wasn't there for the Dochi one. But
Okay.
should we put the album that we both reviewed at
Okay.
one?
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, so GNX
Okay.
would be
So
at the
wait.
top.
So
Oh,
let's let's
okay.
let's go from let's go from the worst
Okay.
to the best.
All right.
This is a grand finale after all,
Okay.
right? So out of our five that we've picked to be on this list, we have Alligator Bites, Don't Heal.
Yep.
We have We Don't Trust You. We have Soul Burger. We have GNX, and we have Dark Times. I have to stand on We Don't Trust You being a classic. So We Don't Trust You cannot be last.
Okay.
I have to
So
stand on that.
okay, so it sounds to me like Absol is coming in fifth because
Um,
Vince is not.
you, okay, fine. We can do that. We can do that.
Okay.
I was gonna say it's between Absol and Vince, but I can see you clearly
Yeah.
have a
Vince will
favorite.
not be.
So number five, we have Absol Soul Burger. Like we said before, one of the best albums of the year. Seeing Absol's ability to have fun with the music. It seemed like Herbert was more of like a I'm trying to get it all out my
Yeah.
chest, and now that it's all off his chest, he can have fun with it. Also, with it being kind of like I kind of think of it as like when you think about like because Soulburger is named after his deceased friend
Yeah.
Doughburger, and you think about like going to funerals and I forget what you call them like when people go up to the podium and then they start speaking for people
Oh,
or
eulogy?
about yeah
Yeah.
eulogy like I kind of think of it that way where like you don't want to just like have people sad the whole
Right.
time at a funeral
Right.
like you kind of want to like have like the good times with the bad times and
Yeah.
like illustrate it all like a lot of people they say like I don't want my funeral to be sad I want my funeral to be a celebration and I feel like with Soulburger this eulogy to Doughburger is more of a celebration
Yeah.
than like sadness. So that's why we agree in putting that in number five. Number four, I think.
There's two options.
Okay, what are our two
So it would be
options?
We Don't Trust You or Dark Times.
Dark Times. Okay. Um, I would put Dark Times number four.
Okay.
Do you agree with that first of all?
I mean, we got me. I didn't call it a classic,
Okay,
and you call it a
I
classic.
did.
So like, I kind of, I kind of got to back
You
you up
got you
here.
got to be a good friend.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like I had Dark Times as my number one,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, Dark Times at four. I mean, it's the fourth best album that we think of the
Uh-huh.
year. It's not like that's a bad thing. You know
No,
what I mean? Like,
not at all.
there's a million albums we didn't even talk about because we play them, and then it's like, no, I'm not talking about this, right? So four is not bad, like for a whole year at all. So like, yeah, I'm fine with Dark Times at four. Um, so then that means that
We don't trust
We Don't
you
Trust
is
You
number three.
is number three.
For the same reasons that we said before, being able it also the nostalgia factor of it,
Yeah, definitely.
having Metro and Future come together,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
because I remember being in high school and thinking like,
Yeah.
yo, Metro and Future, this is like the best thing ever,
No,
and
I
then
know.
10 years or 9 years later, really,
Well, yeah,
um,
because I mean, we had all the DS2 music, right?
yeah,
And the mixtapes, and then What a Time to Be Alive was in
yes,
there, and it was like, oh, this is like the formula, right? And then Heroes and Villains, like, you know what I mean? It
yeah,
was like, this is the formula. So I have no problem with We Don't Trust You.
and number three,
Yeah, and we weren't
um,
gonna get in the weeds with We Don't Trust You, and We Still Don't Trust You
yeah.
either. Like, it's,
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't have to
no.
because if you would have had to make me pick between claustrophobic or crazy
Well,
clientele,
I
that's a
just would have, I
problem.
would have taken that last seven song EP
Yeah,
off of the second one and been like, that's my favorite. But no, I'm fine because this kind of to me it almost encompasses like the whole body. You
yeah,
know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's so then
Number two, I think for this one, we have to be responsible in terms of understanding that this list is a historic record
yeah,
for hip hop, and we're trying to encapsulate hip hop in 2024.
yeah,
And for that reason, that heavily favors one artist over the other. And the
yeah,
artist
that's a good point.
that isn't favored is Doechii in this case. So we have Alligator Bites, Never Heal by Doechii as number
But if
two.
we had put that, I would have no problem with doing it one. And
Mhm.
if you want it to be one, we can put it one.
Yeah,
But I didn't. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
just because like I wasn't there for that show, so I was like, if this is our list,
yeah.
you know what I mean? But if you feel
No, no,
strongly
no.
that should be one
I'm good with
over,
it being number two.
yeah,
For the reason that I said,
yeah.
like
Well, that is true.
it
Like
was amazing,
he,
but it
yeah.
like
I mean, this was Kendrick's year.
yeah, this was Kendrick's year, so
Kendrick
Kendrick should be
Kendrick
number
ran the
one.
year. This
Um,
project was the capper,
yeah,
especially with the way it was released. Like we've had surprise drops with no rollout at
yeah,
all, right?
yeah,
Like Beyonce put out Beyonce in 2015 with, or like maybe 2014 with nothing, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
Drake did, if you're reading this with he did like a short film the night
Hmm.
before, and then it's like mixtape, right? But we haven't had like a minute snippet from a song that wasn't even on here, and
Yeah,
then 10 minutes later,
the
a
album
full
drops.
album with not even an announcement really. It was
Yeah,
just like I just looked on Apple and I was like,
is there?
hang on, there's a full album here.
Yeah,
Um, so like I like, and you know, you have the number, like the projected numbers are it's gonna sell like a album with a rollout.
yeah,
So it's like it deserves to be here. I mean, for me, just whacked out mirrors. It could be one song,
yeah,
right? And like that song does a lot for me, and I think it ties up a lot of loose ends, and it's my favorite. That's Kendrick, my favorite version of Kendrick
yeah,
when it's because for a long time he got very like I think conceptual and within his own world with his music. But when he starts talking about other rappers, whether it's like crazy way, like you know the Drake,
yeah,
but even like the letting Lil Wayne down line,
hmm,
the only Nas congratulated
yeah,
me, like all that stuff. When he starts to like, he showed this year that he has been paying attention this whole
yes,
time.
yes,
When it feels like for a long time it felt like he wasn't paying
yeah.
attention, right? That he was just
He
doing
doesn't have a
him,
phone. He's just doing whatever,
right? And it's
doing
like
his push-ups.
right,
And
exactly. But like throughout the Drake beef and then this album, you realize that like pretty much, and I mean this in a joking way, he's like a social media lurker.
yeah,
Like no
yeah,
posting, but like he's seeing everything. So it's like it's like he sees it all. And
hmm,
like I think it's fun when he acknowledges that he is seeing it. And
yeah,
like it's not just because, you know, like Mr. Morale, that's such a
introspective.
yeah, like that
Yeah,
is looking directly at him, right?
hmm,
It's not necessarily looking at the world around him. It's looking at him. And then I think once he acknowledges the world around him and where he fits into it and where he fits into music and where music fits into the greater like, you know, world, then it's like all right, so he is paying attention and he can like dominate in that way as well.
yeah. I agree. So that's why we have GNX number one. But like Alligator Bites Never Heal. Um, like I said, probably the best debut album of this decade. Probably, I mean, again, like one of the best debut albums I've experienced, like in person, like
Yeah.
live, especially like understanding or like knowing or having heard of Doechii before
Yeah.
and understanding what she was capable of and hearing her be able to capitalize on that
Well, that's
and
another
come
like
through on that.
her being our age, she's
Yeah.
26,
Yeah.
like you and I are, and it's like we see so many artists now blow up when they're 19 and they don't have any life to talk about, right? So then you get to say like what's Ice Spice? Like she's
Maybe like 22,
right,
23.
so it's like you
Yeah.
get like these just like empty songs, right? And
Hmm.
it's not to say you can't make, you know, incredible like obviously everyone's gonna be like, what about Illmatic? And it's like, okay, yeah, Nas is Nas. Like I'm not trying to, you know, but like I think it's like this like level of lived experience that
Hmm.
you can put into that album so you get that full album. So yeah, I mean like because I obviously listened to it after you did the show and I
Yeah.
went back through it, you know, and I watched your review, went back through it, and I just think you can tell that there's like an adult, right, making this
Yeah.
album. And it is like
Yeah.
everything is placed where it's supposed to be, and you can tell that a lot of time, maybe more time than Doechii would have liked, was taken on this album, or at least to release the album.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a very even the cover's so good.
Yes.
Like it's such a well packaged album. And if we're looking at this list, like we have four, I won't say four LA albums. We got three LA and then you know,
One.
but one Long Beach. So it's
Yeah.
like all the you know, it's
It's
right
four
there.
West
But
Coast
four West Coast albums, right?
and
Which
one
is
Atlanta album.
yeah.
Yeah.
And shout out to St. Louis. Shout out to Jason Tatum.
Yes. All right. I did want to say one more thing about the Doechii album, but oh yeah, here's what I wanted to say. Like just based off like her rapping ability,
Yeah.
her singing ability, and her like journey on TDE,
Yeah.
I find her to be perfectly placed in the middle between SZA and Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah. And I think that's like when you look at TDE, right, when it was coming up, right? I think that's like what that we've seen so many different either whether it's like a label group, like a a TDE, Young Money or whatever, or just like an actual group, right? Like the internet, like you have these like more like I think that's what you want, right? You
Yeah.
want these balances so that if you need this or need that, like you can go to this artist and get that from them. And yeah, like it is well balanced. And I think that if you look at both of our lists, like they're well balanced lists. It's
Yes.
not like it's just one type of music, right?
Yeah. It's
And
not just Cash Cobain like 10
well, right,
times. Yeah.
exactly. It's not
Yeah.
it's not just Cash Cobain, and it's not like one subgenre or one
Mhm.
like sound. It's balanced. And I think that's this year it provided us with a lot of good
Balance.
balanced
Yeah.
music.
This is one of the best music years we've had in a while.
Yeah, at least in
Yeah.
terms of like in the 2020s, especially
Yeah.
when things have felt kind of cheap sometimes
Yeah.
and kind of more glitzy than
Manufactured
yeah,
sometimes
it's right.
also.
It's like
Like,
uh when it's like you polish up something that isn't
yeah.
that good, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it's presented in a way where it's like this is the next
It's like polishing a brick.
yeah,
Like,
polishing a brick
yeah.
exactly.
So, yeah. But thank you for tuning in to season 5 of the Cat Podcast. Don't forget to leave your opinion of our top 5 and also your top 5 in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends, follow Old Milk on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Old Milk Media, and check out oldmilk.co for more information. I'm Nate Sperlin. That is Taylor McLeod, and we'll be back when hip hop tells us to be next year. That being said, thank you, happy holidays, and we are out.